Welcome, John.
Thank you.
John, so I have the pleasure of speaking with John Toslin today, and John is somebody I'm so blessed to have had come in my life. He was actually first on my property at the IM Festival, and and when you came to the IM Festival, I didn't really. I think I heard about 5 minutes of the 2.5 hour session that you did, and it wasn't until actually several years later that when I was on the cusp of a major life decision, that being, do I leave this career that I've had for 12 years? I was going through a bunch of things emotionally, and I had heard about this hypnotherapy stuff, and I had, sent a couple of my guinea pig friends to it, and they'd come back just really, really amazed. And probably for the first time in my life, I was experiencing anxiety. And I went and saw one of your students, John, the wonderful Heather Bishop. And I ended up uncovering some emotions that I actually didn't even realize were present. What I ended up going through was not why I went there. And that was the beginning, I would say, of how my roads led to you, where I eventually quit my job. And one of the very first things I did was I took your training. And this was almost 2.5 years ago. And I did it. I took your training really for personal growth. I knew that there was just so much happening under the surface, and it had helped me. So I thought, no matter what, this is going to be a tool I think at the time it was an assumption, I think will make me a better parent and a father and a better coach. And holy man, am I so, so glad and grateful that I did. You've been a tremendous influence in my life, your training and your spirit. So I am delighted to introduce you to some other people that may be listening to this, that have been either reading my emails or have been part of our community, to just introduce you and at least a little bit of your work. And I thought a fun way to do that would be to share with you, and I haven't told you I was going to do this, so to share with you the three top things that I've learned from you, my quick perspective of them, and then maybe just have you reveal or unveil if that's kind of part of the makeup and the intention, or how that happens in your training, if that would be all right. Would you be game for that?
Sure.
Okay. So my first one is to trust my intuition. As a therapist and a coach, I can remember going through the training and being so, so nervous about, am I going to do this right? Am I going to say the right words? And one of the biggest things in my life and my practice that I've learned from you, John, is the greatest gift that we can give is to follow our intuition and be in, what's the word? Be in, not in process, in what with the client? To be
In, I don't know, synchronicity, to be connected.
yes. So
Yeah.
when I fall, like, independent of if I have the perfect words or not, when I really fall into my intuition, whether I'm with a client or whether I'm with my family or anything, that is the biggest lesson. And I've seen you practice that. So trust my intuition. That's my first lesson. So my question to you, maybe to speak a little bit about trusting your intuition. Is that part of what the training's about? How does that happen? How did that learning happen for me?
Well, first off, thanks for your glowing words. I'm touched. Yes. So it's in our whole life, we are best off when we're an integrated whole, when we are ourselves, not filtering our world, not trying to put out a facade about who we are and what we are, but just being ourselves. In cognitive behavioral therapy, that's called the wise mind, that that intuition. It's that part where we have the three cells. We have our emotional mind, which is sometimes called the unconscious mind. We have our logical mind, which is sometimes called the conscious mind, and the wise mind, which is sometimes called the higher conscious mind. And it's that integration. So if you think of the emotional mind and the conscious mind as overlapping, it's that overlapping piece that is that wise mind. And when we're there in that wise mind, we're both responding in an emotional way and in a logical way to the world around us. And so what blocks us from that is all of those kind of beliefs, values, those judgments about ourselves, about the world, all of that stuff. And so that's the natural process through personal growth, is as we deal with that stuff, as we come to recognize that we're really magnificent people, then we start to break down those judgments, and we let that wise mind be out. And so, yes, I'm really delighted that that you see that as a connection to your intuition, and that, you know, because I do trainings for professionals, for people that want to be therapists in the world. We're best therapists when we're connected in that intuitive way, in that wise mind way with the world and with our clients.
Yes, thank you for that beautiful explanation. And when I connect that to, I don't necessarily think of myself as a therapist, and I connect with a coach more. When I think of the work that I aspire and am doing with entrepreneurs and in the corporate world, helping leaders fall into their wise mind is a beautiful gift. It's one of the most beautiful gifts. I think it's one of the highest vibrations of leadership and leading from within that anyone can bring to their work life or to their leadership style. And I just felt called to say that because as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, that's what it's about. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so my next second biggest thing that I have learned is that I am not my fears, and I am not my limiting beliefs. I'm so much more than that. My personal experience of that was first personal through what I learned to clear and befriend through my own emotional attachments to certain beliefs I had. One of the very specific ones that you specifically helped me through was, I am not worthy. I am not enough. And it was a huge barrier in my business that I needed to break through to be okay with failing, with failing. And there was a belief set there that you helped me go through. So really understanding that I am not my fears and I am not my limiting beliefs. I learned that personally first, and then that gave me the gift to be able to help others with it. So I'd love to hear you maybe explain a little bit more about that, and well, you know, that is an essential element of the work that you do.
Yeah, so our fears, our limiting beliefs are illusion. They're an illusion about how we need to be safe and live in the world. You know, one of the acronyms for fear is false evidence appearing real. So there's stuff happening out there that one person responds to as going, oh, well, that's just a shame, or that's interesting, or that's whatever. And another responds to and saying, holy, I'm in danger. I got to get out of here. I got to protect myself. And so, yeah, I mean, we're not those things. We're not those illusions. That's when I was talking about the wise mind. It's those illusions that are holding us back from being able to stand in our emotions, because those emotions, like we sometimes think the emotions are our enemies, but really those emotions help to fuel our interaction in the world. And they give us messages, they tell us what to do, you know, they give us signals that we have to respond in some way. And our logical mind, sometimes we go, oh, well, I'm just too thinking all the time and whatever, but that logical mind also is important to help us to put perspective in the world. And we can't have that in a balanced way without having those illusions of our limitations out of the way. And that's really the therapeutic process, is helping ourselves to recognize that in the past, those decisions, those emotions had a positive purpose. And those decisions that we made, whether it's about our worthiness, whether it's about our abilities, whether it's about other people, those decisions were made to keep us as safe as possible back then, but they're no longer necessary now. And so that's really about what the therapeutic process is about.
Thank you.
You are not your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You are you, and it is that essence of you that gets distorted, deleted, and generalized by the beliefs, the limiting belief.
Yeah, in practicing this, I found a lot of people have kind of grabbed on to the like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking this way. I shouldn't be thinking this way. I shouldn't, and that really doesn't validate the actual value of that emotion, of that belief. And well, part of me learning I am not my beliefs is befriending them and,
Exactly.
and using them
because
as a,
what we resist persists. So the more we fight that belief, the stronger it is inside of us.
mm-hmm.
It's like saying, thank you for presenting yourself. Now I know what I need to do in order to be clear of that old belief.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I apologize. This is your interview, but I just feel so called to share because this is all stuff that's been coming out of me from a business talk. One of the ways that I've translated what we're talking about is in business, you'll create like ideal customer avatars, your ideal customer. So what I've done is I'm having people actually identify as they would an ideal customer. What are their fears and their beliefs, and actually build a profile on what they are to really get to know them, and then transform those saboteurs into allies, into your strongest trusted advisors to basically lead from a different truth. Because it's going to come up. We're emotional beings. And when it comes up, it'll be like, oh, I know what that guy looks like. And we can process it rather than reject it.
Excellent.
So thank you for that. Okay, my third is, and this is more for your spiritual self. I think one of the things I've learned from your spirit and the way that you really show up for all your students and everyone that meets you is that life is energy. You often say that I don't want to mess it up, our attention goes.
Energy flows where the attention goes.
Our energy flows where our attention goes. And
yeah.
For me, one of my experiences of that is when our energy is in alignment with our purpose, that is the greatest expression of our gifts and our contribution. And a side benefit of that is our decisions become so much easier because it's like, does this align with my purpose? Yes or no? If it does, awesome. Then your energy goes there. Your attention goes there, and then your energy flows there. So life is energy. So I'm curious if you would talk about maybe how you came to know that wisdom and how that shows up in your course and in your work.
Well, okay. So if we look at another triad, so we've looked at the emotions, the conscious mind, and the wise mind. There's also the three selves: the unconscious, the higher conscious, and the conscious mind. The higher conscious mind's primary tool is energy. So that's it. That energy needs to flow from the higher conscious mind. Now, all energy doesn't come from the higher conscious mind. We get it in other ways, but the highest energies comes from the higher conscious mind. And so its highest purpose, the higher conscious mind's highest purpose, is for us to achieve our life's purpose. So when you say that energy is tied into our purpose, it's absolutely true. When we're on our purpose, we move forward into that. Now, how this became evident over time, and I mean, you know, this is a 40-year study of, you know, of change and growth. But you know, first off, like, I always check things out with myself, and I noticed as I started to get more on track. So what held me back from being on track was those limitations. You know, it's like, oh, well, I can't do that. I can't make enough money doing that. I can't, you know, whatever. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. How could I be a good parent, father, you know, husband if I do that? And so it's all of this stuff sort of letting these outer expectations get in the way. And as I got closer and closer to actually following my purpose, to share, to be out there, and to be a model of self-acceptance and self-love, then the energy started coming in more and more, you know, more strongly. And then so seeing my clients as I reflect that in them, as they start to recognize that they are in fact loving whole beings, and that there's not that that negative limitations or shields, those aren't necessary, then their energy started flowing. And so out of that, what I found was that because we're a physical being as well as an emotional being and spiritual being, the physical sometimes is slower. And so what was happening with my clients and with myself is, as healing was taking place, as we were clearing blocks, there was dis-ease and discomfort in the body. There was tensions. And so I started studying hunakane and different massages to look at how can we help the body to come into balance, recognizing that change happens in all three levels. So it's happening in the physical, it's happening in the emotional, and it's happening in the spiritual, and that it's that integration. And ultimately, change is about changing the way energy flows in our body. If we look at it from a scientific perspective, that's changing the neurology, changing the way the energy moves. From an emotional or a metaphysical, it's changing the chakras and the flow of energy in the body. So no matter what perspective you put on it, as we heal, we get access to more energy, and we flow that energy, and we so that the energy expands beyond us.
Nice, thank you.
So life is energy.
From your 40 years of experience, you mentioned the another triad there. So spiritual, physical, and mental.
Yeah.
Right? Or no,
Emotional.
Right, physical and emotional. Which shows up first? Is there a common pattern on which, like, when we're out of an alignment, where does that happen first, second, and third? Is there a pattern?
Well, the third is the spiritual, because we're disconnected from our spiritual connection when we're out of alignment. So then it's really about that interaction between the conscious and the unconscious, or the mental and the emotional. That struggle takes place. The emotional holds our beliefs and our values in the undercurrent. We call that generally the unconscious mind. That's all where all of that stuff resides. The conscious is kind of our willpower. It's our blueprint of what we think the world should be like, what we should be doing, and what should be happening. And so it's that interaction that is taking place, but we can't connect to our higher conscious mind until all of those illusions and those lies, well, we can't connect until they start to disappear. Once we get them totally gone, then we can be fully connected. But that flow doesn't take place until we start to get rid of those old lies and false beliefs, illusions.
Thank you. The last question I have for you, and I think this is a really good segue into the illusion, the misconception of what hypnotherapy is. It's maybe part of the reason why I've avoided it in a lot of my circles. It's people don't have really at least a current understanding of what it is, and immediately they expect, you know, that there's going to be a watch there, they're going to be clucking like a chicken, or, you know, there's an opportunity to reprogram their mind with them not being conscious of it. I would love you to give a current definition, and at least certainly your own definition of, as you're training people through one of the practices of therapy, which is hypnotherapy, and I know you kind of have a lot within your coursework, maybe help demystify and educate what the heck is this hypnotherapy? What is this practice that you teach?
Yeah. Okay. So if we look from a historic perspective, like way back in the ancient Egyptian times, 3,000 years ago, there was hypnosis was being used. Hypnosis is where the therapist was directing the unconscious mind of the client to think and experience the world in certain ways. So it was a very, very directive. Over time, that started evolving in part with the work of Sigmund Freud, and then one of his students, Carl Jung, who really started understanding the unconscious mind. And then out of that came Fritz Perls, who developed Gestalt therapy, and then moved into like neurolinguistic programming, which started making that more expanded. And now what the difference is that hypnotherapy is where the conscious mind of the client is in communication with the unconscious mind. And so it's where there is that wise mind connection. Mm-hmm. So that's the purpose of hypnotherapy, is to use light to medium states of trance. Mm-hmm. Now, the more modern term for hypnotherapy is mindfulness. Mm-hmm. Okay, so mindfulness is that internal experience. We, us older people call it trance. Mm-hmm. Is that inner experience where we have that connection between our emotions, between our thoughts, and between our wise, the wise mind. Mm-hmm. And so there's that integration. And so, hypnotherapy is an older term. What it does is it defines the process of integrating both the conscious and the unconscious minds. So that, because change is not just about changing the unconscious mind, because the conscious mind, which is our thinking logical mind, reprograms the problem if it doesn't follow along and kind of get the lesson as well. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So in accelerated emotional release therapy, one of the main reasons that it works is that the client gets to get the lesson, gets to learn about life in a different way, from a different perspective than when they were 3 years old or in birth or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And my experience has been the beauty of that practice in bringing clients into the wise mind is the level of speed of rapid change. You've taught us to always assume that the client can change very, very quickly without expectation, because it can really, really happen when those two minds come together. And I've experienced it both through client work and in myself, where it's literally like downloading a new computer program, and you go through all of the times in your life where you thought one thing and then you have a new truth to put over that, and it's like, holy shit, what was I thinking? Pardon the swear, but it's really that. it's worth swearing for. Thank you. So you, which I am really delighted to be able to tell people about, you have another training coming up. Maybe tell us a little bit about it. It's October 16th.
Well, that's the cutoff for the early bird. The training actually it's 3 weekends, Saturday and Sunday weekends, starting in November and ending and I think it's every other weekend from the 1st of November on, something like that. It's on the website, tosland.com, that you'll discover it under trainings. Or you can email me and I'll give you information. So currently my daughter Tammy and I are reworking the trainings. So Tammy's helping me to move out of the Stone Age, and with the older kind of languaging into the more sort of modern languaging. We're looking at changing the trainings in many ways, some of which is adding in more on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is that integration with the mind and the emotions. Mm. And so we're entering into part 2 of understanding the unconscious mind. Understanding the unconscious mind is the practitioner certification for hypnotherapy and for accelerated emotional release therapy, which is the best process that I've discovered to go back and to release those emotions, to release those limitations, those beliefs in the past. So this is the part 2 section. It's available both through Zoom and in live. So some people are choosing to come live and some people are choosing to do it via Zoom, depending sometimes on their location and or their health or desires. Mm-hmm. And so the part 1 is just wrapping up, and so those videos are available now, or will be available, so that if you come into part 2, you can purchase those videos and get caught up in pieces, or you can wait until next year and take it. Yeah. The other option is if you purchase them and have the videos, then you can take that purchase price off of the training price in the fall next year when we do Understanding the Unconscious Mind Part 1.
Nice. Okay.
And Part 2 is focused more on the accelerated emotional release therapy. Part 1 is laying the foundation for that.
Right. Okay, great. And when I took it, I actually jumped right into part 2. So I can absolutely attest that you don't need part 1 to do part 2, but the combination of them together absolutely complement each other. So
once
amazing.
Once it's all together, you have it all. Yeah.
Thank you for being the person that you are. Thank you for having such a beautiful mission. John Toslin is on a mission to heal the world. And I've seen that in writing, I've seen it in practice, I've seen it in really every interaction that we've had together, which has been quite a few. So thank you. That's a pretty special and really needed mission to be following, particularly during these times. So thank you so much for taking the time with me today, John. Thanks for spreading the love and the healing that you do. And I look forward to seeing what else you create and who else you impact.
Great. Well, thank you.